I want to go back to vacation. I'm telling you. Holy cow. I've had more tears shed in my office today.
Oh my.
Yeah, that's right.
I truly have a headache that it's just splitting.
Hey, right here are you.
Okay, good. Okay. We're getting started. You're going to laugh about this one. So, we had a firefighter take an oath of office.
Yes.
He subsequently sent this email. Your thoughts, please.
Wow. What you might do is just add his.
All right, good.
His email was received.
All right, good evening. Before we get started, I'd like to welcome Pastor Dave Benson to lead us in our invocation. Yeah, great, Dave.
Welcome. Let's pray. Oh God, we thank you so much for the blessing of being a part of the city of Milton. For those who live here and those who work here, we give you thanks for all the wonderful people and their families. And so, oh God, when a tragic event like the one that happened yesterday happens in our community, it shakes us. And it reminds us that even here in Milton, among us, there are people who are troubled. And there are people that are hurting. There are people that need community. And so I give you thanks for these leaders and for these citizens that have gathered here as we seek to be a community. May we reach out in love and concern and be good neighbors, particularly to those who may be hurting and who may need the friendship that we can afford. We thank you for all the various programs and initiatives that go on. We even thank you, O Lord, for the occasional times when we have to work together in conflict and find some middle ground, because we know that that's what communities do. We work together. We look for the right answers, and hopefully we do things within your will to move us forward as a community that would reflect your glory in some way. And so we thank you for this meeting, and we ask your presence in it. We pray in your name. Amen.
Thank you, Reverend Benson. I got to tell you a real quick funny story. When we first became a city, we had the prior pastor at Birmingham, John Wolf, came in and did an invocation, and afterwards he sat down in the audience and listened to the meeting for a while, and I noticed after a little bit he started kind of nodding off, and I said, John, I see you're nodding off. I said, I know exactly how you feel. Thank you for being here. So, anyway, I'd like to call the regular meeting of the Milton City Council for Monday, June 6, 2011 to order. Will the city clerk please call the roll and make general announcements?
Good evening, Mayor and Council. I'll be happy to call roll for the June 6, 2011 regular meeting. However, I would like to remind those in attendance to please silence all cell phones at this time. Additionally, those attending the meeting who would like to provide public comment either during the public hearing or during the call for public comment, you are required to complete a public comment card prior to speaking on an item. There is no public comment for consent agenda items or items under first presentation. Those called to speak will be taken in the order that the speaker cards were received by the city clerk's staff prior to the beginning of tonight's meeting. All speakers will identify themselves by name, address, and organization if applicable. When you hear the bell, you have 30 seconds to complete your remarks. The City Council may allow public comment on either an agenda item or general public comment from a representative of such an organized group or association, provided, however, that such an individual shall file a notarized affidavit that they have filed that the authority to speak on behalf of said organization on a form provided by the city clerk prior to the agenda item being called. Demonstration of any sort within this chamber is prohibited, so please refrain from any applause, cheering, booing, outbursts, or dialogue with any person speaking. Please show the same respect to the person speaking that you will expect to receive yourself. Anyone in violation will be asked to leave. As I call roll, please confirm your attendance. Mayor Joe Lockwood.
Here.
Councilmember Karen Thurman.
Here.
Councilmember Julie Sauter Bailey.
Here.
Councilmember Bill Luss.
Here.
Councilmember Bert Hewitt.
Here.
Councilmember Joe Longoria.
Here.
Councilmember Alan Tarp.
Here.
Would everyone please rise for the Pledge of Allegiance?
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Okay, I want to welcome everybody here tonight. We appreciate you being here. Now, will our city clerk please sound the first item?
Our first item is approval of meeting agenda, agenda item number 11-106.
Okay. Are there any items to be considered?
Mayor, I've got a question for Councilmember Tart. Is your appointee tonight to the BZA here?
Yes, sir. She is. She just
Okay, then I guess, Mayor, I would ask that we move the first item under new business
Okay.
to after reports and presentations. I don't know that actually accomplished much tonight, but at least it'll get us above all that first presentation stuff. As well as I would ask your consideration to add, in addition to what was advertised as land acquisition and executive session, to add potential litigation and personnel.
Okay. Is there any other items? Council have any items? Okay, do I have a motion and a second?
I make a motion to approve the meeting agenda as edited by staff. Second.
Okay, I've got a motion for approval of the agenda with the change from Councilmember Hewitt and a second by Councilmember Longoria. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? That's unanimous. Okay, next item is public comment. Public comment is a time for citizens to share information with the mayor and the city council and to provide input and opinion on any matter that is not scheduled for its own public hearing during today's meeting. There's no discussion on items on the consent agenda or first presentation from the public or council. Each citizen who chooses to participate in public comment must complete a comment card and submit it to the city clerk. Please remember this is not a time to engage the mayor or members of the city council in conversation. When your name is called, please step forward and speak into the microphones and state your name and address for the record. You'll have 5 minutes for remarks. Do we have any public comment?
No, sir, we do not.
Okay. And we will move on to the consent agenda. Will the city clerk please sound those items out?
Our first item is approval of the April 25th, 2011 work session. Agenda item number 11-107. Next is approval of the May 2nd, 2011 regular council meeting minutes. Agenda item number 11-108. Next, approval of a professional services agreement between the City of Milton and Wolverton and Associates, Inc. for the design of a shoulder repair on Mountain Road. Agenda item number 11-109. Approval of an agreement between the City of Milton and Brumbelow Reese and Associates, Inc. for a right-of-way and topographic survey for drainage improvements on Hopewell Road. This is agenda item number 11-110. Our fifth item is approval of an agreement between the City of Milton and Frontline Surveying and Mapping, Inc. for boundary and topographic survey for 2.5-acre parcel at 15690 Hopewell Road. Agenda item number 11-111. Sixth, approval of a professional services agreement between the City of Milton and Georgia Land Surveying Holding Corp., Inc. for a boundary and topographic survey for Crabapple Park for an amount not to exceed $1,250. Agenda item number 11-112. Our next item is approval of a revised Parks and Recreation event license agreement between the City of Milton and I-9 Sports, Forsyth, North Fulton, to offer a co-ed youth soccer program for ages 4 through 12. Agenda item number 11-113. Next, approval of a revised Parks and Recreation event license agreement between the City of Milton and I-9 Sports, Forsyth, North Fulton, to offer a co-ed youth flag football program for ages 4 through 12. Agenda item number 11-114. Our last item is approval of a revised fee schedule for the City of Milton Parks and Recreation Department. This is agenda item number 11-115.
Mr. Mayor, I move to approve the consent agenda as prepared by staff.
I'll second the motion.
Okay, got a motion by Councilmember Lust, second by Councilmember Bailey. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Sounds unanimous. Let's move on to reports and presentations.
The first presentation is a proclamation recognizing MDA Firefighter Appreciation Month. This is presented by Mayor Joe Lockwood.
Okay. For 57 years, firefighters have been orchestrating annual Fill the Boot drives to help advance the Muscular Dystrophy Association's life-saving mission. The public service resulting from this labor of love is nothing short of incredible. The effort has raised more than $425 million nationally to help MDA speed research seeking treatments and cures for muscle diseases, while simultaneously helping MDA provide families affected by neuromuscular diseases with unparalleled health care services. Over the last 4 years, the City of Milton Fire Department has collected $161,777 from generous citizens for local children and adults fighting muscular dystrophy. In 2010, the department raised $48,715, which was the highest in the metro area, Atlanta area, and the third largest in the state of Georgia. Wow. This year, the City of Milton will be collecting on June 24th, July 8th, July 29th, August 12th, and September 2nd. Please show your support of MDA and our brave firefighters by visiting one of the collection sites and helping us fill that boot. Angela Brown, the fundraising coordinator in the Atlanta West office of MDA, is excited to support the department as they embark on another successful boot drive and is here with us in the audience. Also in our audience are Andrew and Debbie Eggleston and their 6-year-old son, Kyle. Also, please welcome Chief Bob Edgar and members of the City of Milton Fire Department. Now I'm going to read this proclamation. Whereas dedicated and selfless firefighters in Milton provide vital and life-saving services to the citizens of their community, and whereas at a moment's notice these men and women risk their lives subduing fires and rescuing those trapped in infernos, as well as saving citizens from emergencies that could have been deadly situations, and whereas Georgia firefighters contribute significantly to the continued well-being of Georgians through their outstanding commitment to community service. Their sense of duty and responsibility is evident by the hundreds of volunteer hours in annual boot drives to collect funds to fight muscular dystrophy. And whereas, for over 50 years, firefighters throughout Georgia and the nation have worked with MDA to eradicate the muscular dystrophies, Lou Gehrig's disease, myasthenia gravis, and other neuromuscular diseases. And whereas many of Milton's most deserving citizens have benefited from the funds raised by firefighters in Fill the Boot campaign, and these public servants make invaluable contributions to our community and all tasks they perform. Now, therefore, we, the Mayor and the City Council of the City of Milton, hereby dictate and proclaim June through September as MDA Firefighter Appreciation Time in the City of Milton, Georgia, and encourage all citizens of Milton, Georgia to recognize and support the efforts of these firefighters on behalf of MDA. This is given under our hand and sealed at the City of Milton, Georgia on the 6th day of June 2011. And in a minute I'm going to ask all those in our audience that are here for this to step forward. But I just want to say a couple personal things that goes out to our firefighters, and not only our firefighters, but all of our public safety, whether that's in police also. But these guys that put their life and are willing to do things to save somebody they maybe don't even know, but a citizen, they obviously do it for the right reasons, the cause. They don't do it for the money. I've always said this, and you guys don't repeat it, but we could pay these guys 10 times their salary and it's still not worth the job. I mean, it's invaluable what they do. So I just want to thank all of our public safety personnel, not only in Milton, but all over our country, and also the citizens that have supported MDA through these boot drives. So we appreciate that. And now, if the people that I had read off earlier will come up for these proclamations, and I'm going to ask the council to come down too for a picture.
I know.
I need a new line of words.
Yeah.
I'm gonna buy a boot.
I think we just said that.
Really big boot, right? You think an old tennis shoe would work? Wouldn't collect quite as much.
Until they collected X amount,
They hold them hostage or whatever. Whatever that. I'd be holding a boot when I showed up at a fire. Is he giving it?
But there was a story in some rural county place in Tennessee. They let somebody's house burn.
Should we go back down?
For $75.
He probably is more concerned about getting a picture with the firemen than us. Firemen are much more excited than we are.
Carolyn, I did have some making red barbecue last
It was good.
What barbecue? Making red barbecue. We'd driven through, I was going down to Dothan and come down to the top of everything. And I was like, my daughter and I. Hey, you know, you can find some coffee for these. I said, what? We were talking about making red barbecue this morning.
Do they want to get a picture with all the firemen? Yeah, get all the kids and the firemen together.
I don't know what the name of it is, but the girls from the
Mayor can get in there, represent us.
they had to stop it.
You just thought we were moving over there. We're back to the bow tie again. Is it, is it June now? We took off for a couple of weeks.
Yeah, I did. I took off.
Are you making fun?
Yeah.
Well, I may not be, I think I may be.
You can't.
Well, I know that.
Have nothing to say.
Well, I did notice that the flash was turned towards him.
I like this.
Oh, does he?
Yeah, I don't know if you.
Using this cheap brand here. I was getting a lot of pushback about not.
Well, for those of us that worked on getting it in the first place, yeah.
Hey, Chris,
Now
Chris, where did you want to put Alan's appointment?
in the name, but otherwise,
Okay,
they
okay.
gave, it'd be pretty to have the lights on now.
You know, I
hated it.
recognize I tried to do something that was beneficial and accomplished absolutely nothing. We're going to leave well enough alone.
Story of my life.
It's the thought that
Sounds
counts.
like government.
Easier on us.
Okay. Will the city clerk please sound the next presentation item?
Next item is presentation of City of Milton tax assessments and new legislation. This is presented by Bert Manning, Fulton County Tax Assessor.
Let me just say this. Number one, I want to thank you, Mr. Manning, for coming here and speaking with us. And hope you didn't hear about their first day they collected $10,000. I'm sure your department would like to be able to do that easy.
And we would, and I appreciate it. I appreciate the opportunity to be here this afternoon. As you know, we've been making a little bit of news ourselves down at the Board of Assessors as we run around. I have a brief little presentation that I hope will be there in front of you. Do I have some kind of clicker, or are you going to do it for me?
Keeper of the clicker.
Anyway, it's my pleasure to be here this evening representing the Fulton County Board of Assessors. My name is Bert Manning. I'm the Chief Appraiser, which of course I think some of you know. That simply means I'm the department head for the Board of Assessors. I represent the Board of Assessors. They are your neighbors. They are citizens of Fulton County. They're appointed by the County Commission. I was glancing at this tonight thinking I don't guess any of them are actually Milton residents, although I know Saul Mohamed was unincorporated Fulton County before all of y'all started jumping properties around and creating all these lines. But they represent, from all parts of the county, Bill Huff, Gail Barnett, Don Johnson, Rick Kinney. Board of Assessors' primary duty is to identify and assess all taxable property, and that's, what we do. They also set policy for our office, but for you and your citizens, probably one of the most important things they do is they serve as the first level of appeals for any appeals that are filed. We represent all of Fulton County from one end to the other, from Chattahoochee Hill Country all the way up to God's Country up here in Milton. And, it's quite a ride from one end to the other. We have a large staff. We have 340,000 separate tax parcels that we do, although, and Milton's a good-sized land area, but you don't have all that many tax parcels. Just to bring you up to date as to how we got here, all of you, that before Milton was a city, we were back just happily going along, appraising the new construction that was going on and recognizing the property values as they increased and picking up and going forward. And somewhere along 2008, we began to recognize there really was a problem. We didn't know how much of a problem, didn't know how far it was going to take it. But if you'll notice the graph in front of you, the tax digest this is county tax digest, not City of Milton. You can see where in 2008 it began to level out, in 2009 and then 10 started dropping. The red line is the value of residential property in total. The line right below that is the value of the commercial industrial property. And down at the bottom, the purple line is the other. I like to let you know that that's where you can help your tax digest, because if you run out and buy a new car, Dr. Ferdinand will be glad to add it on the next year's digest and put it in that line down there. The purple line down at the bottom is about 10% of the total county digest, and that is mainly motor vehicles, public utilities, the few mobile homes left in the county, and things like that. Last year, our wonderful legislature met, and they passed Senate Bill 346. As I've been going around the county talking about the assessment notices, I let people know they don't have to memorize the bill number. My staff better recognize it, because there were 50 changes to property tax laws. 50 changes. Now, most of them weren't significant. Some of them were sort of minor, and they affected things. But they called it the sweeping reform of property tax assessment. It did change the appeal process a little bit. But primarily, the thing that's going on in our lives right now, and frankly for you and your citizens, are the assessment notices and the changes to assessment notices. The bill required annual notices of assessment. You will remember we used to call them change of assessment notices, and we would send them out when your property value changed, up or down. But from now going forward, they are annual. So if you own property in any one of Georgia's 159 counties, you get an assessment notice annually, you will get one annually, and it will be on a similar format. The legislature has told the Revenue Commissioner to promulgate a standardized form for assessment notices. So if you've got property in DeKalb County and in Fulton, when you see your notices, they'll look similar to you. This is a sample of it, and I'll talk about it briefly just a second. Unless this one has.
There's a laser pointer on that.
Does? What do I push? So maybe I have to show you. What do I push to make it? That is that one right there. Thank you.
Falling out of adjustment, too.
I'm backing away from it. Okay. There are several parts up in the top right-hand corner of the notice. There are dates that are very important. This, of course, is a sample doing. Then in the middle, and most important for the assessment notice, is the current value. Thank you. And then down in the bottom is a big area which is all new to us, and it's called for your estimate of taxes. And frankly, Board of Assessors didn't estimate taxes. We appraised values, handled the appeals, and turned it over to the tax commissioner, and this has been a little bit of an interesting thing to us. We recognized early on that this new assessment notice was going to be unusual and maybe have some confusion, so we have scheduled, and in each of your assessment notices you received a copy of this flyer that showed the 8 locations that we were scheduling meetings. We've already had 6 of them. There are 2 more there to go, and we've even added a 3rd one, a 9th one. So I've got 3 more to go, understanding your assessment notice. Last Saturday, just a couple of days ago, we had a very good turnout down at the Benson Senior Center in Sandy Springs. There were a little over 260 people. We have had as small as 88 people in attendance to these meetings and as many as 500. So we've been getting the word out about the assessment notices. And you know, we were dealing with these things, trying to figure out what was going to make people want to come. Little did we know that all you have to do is not add 2 and 2 and get 4, and then the AJC would help us with our attendance to the meetings. They managed to put out a lot of publicity. You may have unfortunately seen me on almost every TV channel, and I'm really not aspiring to be an anchor when I go into retirement. But we did have an error. There actually turned out to be 2 things wrong with some of the notices, different notices. The error that they made all this fuss about really was a harmless error that really didn't affect anything. It had to do with the summation only, and it only affected one of our tax districts. As you know, with all the new cities and things, we have 15 separate tax districts in this county. Software worked great on totaling them in all of them except for one, our biggest one, Atlanta. The annual notice of assessment must include an estimate of the year's taxes based on the new proposed assessment using prior millage rate. And the little head thing there says estimate for all tax jurisdictions. Well, I thought when I chose this slide, and actually plagiarized it from something the Revenue Department did, I thought this was going to be a picture of one of my staff members who were answering all the phone calls and explaining this. As it turned out, we're now pretty sure that it's a resident of the city of Atlanta that opened up their assessment notice, where last year they paid $112 in taxes, and down at the bottom it said $4,200. We're pretty sure of that. And I'll go over it again in a minute, but there was the only error with that was the summation line. All the individual lines of taxes were correct across, but the program, we've since learned that there was a hidden solid waste charge in the city of Atlanta that we didn't know to tell the computer not to pick up, and also it decided on its own, we think, that if there was Atlanta schools, and each of them had bonds, then it would just add in that solid waste charge 4 times. Estimate for all tax jurisdictions. That was the mistake in communication in our office that affected a number of the cities. The cities like Milton, where Dr. Ferdinand does not collect city tax for. We knew early on going into this that we were not going to be able to pick up the city homestead exemption amounts. Well, the miscommunication in our office was that somebody decided, oh, that means we're not going to put the city tax line on there. And this is the one part of the notice that we did mess up on. And as I'll explain in just a minute, residents of those cities will be receiving corrected notices, including Milton, for property owners. We expect them to all go out this Friday or Saturday with a date of June 11th. In other words, this Saturday on. Over the past 3 years, we've been proactive. As I told you back in 2008, we barely knew there was a problem, but even then we lowered value on 117,000 residential properties. We knew that things were slowing down. We could see it looking back at January 1st, 2008. Looking back now, it was a token adjustment. We did not know what was happening with the market. 2009, a little further, we lowered values on almost 153,000 properties and a little bit over 161,000 properties in 2010. As a matter of fact, we lowered about 36% of the properties in 2008, 46% of them in 2009, 49% of them in 2010, and yes, as we've gone into 2011, even more. Over 50% of the parcels had lower values at assessment notice time from our office. We think we've done a good job. We know statistically we've done a good job. Our sales ratios are telling us we're right at market value. But you know, that's all based on median numbers. And when you get something right on, it means that half of them are probably too low and half of them are probably too high as we're going forward. And so we look to the appeal process to help us make sure that we've got things right. This is an example of an assessment notice with the owner redacted to protect the guilty, I guess. This particular one is in a neighboring city of yours. And it does have the May 7th date, the June 21st deadline to file an appeal. And what it shows is a slight reduction in value from, what does it say, 385 down to 379, something like that. And at the bottom, this is that estimate of taxes that we had to put on, that we put on for the very first time. And with a lot of help, most of them worked, with those two exceptions. Here's a better, easier one to see of just the bottom portion, the estimate. The individual line items did work. Fulton operating, Fulton schools, total tax, the city of Johns Creek, total the state, and in this case, the total estimate worked. It's in red because that's the number in city of Atlanta that did not work right. Everything else on the notices was good, and we actually weren't planning to send new notices. We were going to weather the storm. It was when we learned and decided that we had erred on the other cities that Dr. Ferdinand doesn't collect for, including Milton, that we're going to get these extra notices out. You hit the wrong button. This is a line just to show the homestead exemption. Another part of the change is, you will remember that the citizens of Fulton County voted 3 years ago to increase the basic homestead exemption for the county from $15,000 at the time up to $30,000 this year. Well, when we pulled these files, of course, it showed $25,000 because that's what had been updated. So on an imaginary property worth $100,000, everything's assessed at 40%, $40,000. You pull out the homestead exemption, which last year was $25,000, leaves a net taxable of $15,000 times the millage rate and a $150 tax bill for that $100,000 Fulton County line. If you change it to what it really is, which is the $30,000 exemption that will be on the bills this year, you can see the same $100,000 property minus the 30 has $10,000 taxable and a $100 tax bill instead of $150. And so that change for any of you who have homesteaded properties will be in effect for your Fulton County line item, for Fulton County maintenance operation. I don't know enough about the Milton homestead exemption. Did y'all change your city exemption for 2011? So whatever you people had last year will be appropriate. Just following one step further, we showed you earlier starting at 05. This one starts really with 07, and you can see more appropriately what's actually happened to the tax digest. Even though we don't have the numbers over there for 2011, we do know that they're going down. They went down at assessment notice time. County-wide, almost 8% as an average over-wide. The city of Milton did not go down that much. As a matter of fact, let's get a little bit more personal and let's talk about where we are now. It's my understanding that we are right down here in this corner, right here, right now, I think, right there, so down in the little corner. But City of Milton, yeah, that's what I was trying to point to. City of Milton, and I know you can't see this real well. I hope y'all can see it on your computer up there, but this shows you the 9, 10, and 11 tax digest. We do not have yet the numbers like the public utilities and close it, so we have to be careful that we're not second guessing, what the actual 2011 number will be. But you can see that you were down, down about 9% since 2009, based on the real estate valuations, and we anticipate with the public utilities it won't be that much of a change. Here's a graphic format of the same thing. And this shows the City of Milton the last 3 years. And in your case, you can see that while residential is decreasing, so is commercial. As again earlier, the only thing that's staying the same is y'all keep buying new cars, so your other line stays there. But that's the information that we're really reporting to you today. You're down at assessment notice time about 5% over estimates, the numbers we had from last year. We are, now that we've got our corrected assessment notices prepared and they're at a printer being done, we're going to focus this week on trying to get the first level of estimates available for all tax jurisdictions to turn over to Dr. Ferdinand and share out with you. And I'm sure I'll send a copy to Stacy, and we'll be talking as soon as we've got them, as soon as we know what they are. With every assessment notice comes the right to appeal, and in your case, there are going to be corrected notices. But if you already know that you think that the value is wrong and you're going to appeal, don't wait. Go ahead and file it. It helps us work them and go. We will honor the appeal now. We won't require you to reappeal when the new assessment notice comes out. You will have another 45 days starting from Saturday in case you change your mind later and want to file an appeal. But it's not my job to encourage any extra appeals. All it does is add extra work for us as we're going forward. But the appeal process is really part of mass appraisal because we deal very much off of tables and data characteristics, and we need to know the individual property owner's input. For one of the first time last year and this year, we've had a number of people come up and tell us, you lowered my property value too much. Well, we got caught in a couple of things. One is, as you know, there have been downturns in the market. There are foreclosures virtually everywhere in the county, in some areas more prevalent than others. But the legislature has come back now and tells us that we're required to give the same dignity to a distress sale, a REO sale, a short sale, as we are an arm's length sale between individuals. And that has frankly changed the way we've had to look at things. And so in some neighborhoods, on some properties, I think we've lowered values more than market value dictates. Now, every one of the meetings I go to talk about it, there's always somebody said, but you didn't lower mine enough. And we know that. So if somebody wants to file an appeal, there are several reasons to file an appeal. Taxability is one. But for most of us, that's not a legitimate issue because most of us don't own places of worship or institutions of charity or government buildings. That's right, you haven't run out and built City Hall taken off tax rolls yet, have you? This building's definitely still on the tax rolls. Most of us, if we file an appeal, would do it because of value. In our opinion, the value that the assessor's office has on it is too high, or uniformity of assessment, meaning that we aren't treating you like similar properties, again, in your opinion. We think we're doing it. We think we've done a good job. Another reason to file an appeal would be a denial of an exemption. If you apply for an exemption and it is denied, you will receive a letter and a right to file an appeal, same 45 days as the assessment notice. I live in a neighborhood where the lady next door used to have 3 little boys under the age of 8. I'm convinced at least one of them was Dennis the Menace. However, that may or may not have been a good reason for me to file an appeal of the value of my property. When people look at the value of the property, and the owner knows more than we do, you can have obsolescences internally that we may not know. You can invite us in to see your basement that floods or some other reason that we don't know, and you can file an appeal based on that. But you can also file an appeal based on external obsolescence. And if we've looked at your neighborhood, the neighborhoods that are badly affected, and Milton has not been, based on the sales numbers we've seen, like some of the other portions of Fulton County. But if there's a foreclosed house that's abandoned across the street or next door to yours, and you think it's dragging down your value, you can at least use that as have us look at it to see if you think it should be appealed. State mandated a uniform appeal form. The law doesn't say that every citizen needs to use it. To file an appeal, you must put it in writing, you must identify the property, and you must sign your appeal, and you must submit it within the 45-day window so that you don't miss it. We encourage you to go on our website, use these appeal forms. The state has it on their website, State Department of Revenue. We've got it on fultonassessor.org, and I'll close with the website up there for anybody that wants to write it down. But there are a couple of changes. One of the biggest changes is that Senate Bill 346 now requires that a property owner who's filing an appeal choose the track for the appeal that they want to. Whoops, wrong button. Let's see if it does work going back. Yep. There are boxes. The Board of Equalization is the standard box that most people will choose. First of all, you can appeal anything, uniformity, value, denial of exemption, anything to do with your value there, and it doesn't cost you anything, at least initially. It certainly doesn't cost you anything except your time to prepare and go to a Board of Equalization hearing and present your case. The other options are a little different. Binding arbitration is sort of new. It was approved last year by the legislature, went into effect last July, and it can be expensive because, first of all, it requires the property owner to submit a certified appraisal within 45 days of choosing this track for their arbitration. If you haven't recently had a refi or some other reason to have the appraisal, you've got to go out and get one. And then if the Board of Assessors doesn't accept your value, you immediately have a filing fee to court, $213, and if you lose, you could end up paying the arbitrator's fee. Of course, if the county loses, the county pays the arbitrator's fee. Another one is hearing officer. And frankly, this one might be a little more interest to residents of Milton than it is in some other parts of the county. It's a new one. It will be heard before a hearing officer, sort of like a master appraiser who is qualified to do it. The county will provide the site and pay for the appraiser to be there. But it's limited. When the legislature did this as a test thing, they said it could only be for properties valued at over $1 million. And that begins to eliminate some of them who will be eligible. And then it also says it can't be homesteaded property. So, it begins to limit it down. We think that the legislature was aiming this for commercial properties, but we don't really have any guidance on that. As we stand here tonight, we only have about 4,000 appeals filed so far in Fulton County this year, which is a small number, but of course we haven't gotten to our June 21st deadline, and a lot of people know that we're sending out the corrected notices that will give us new notices. But we noticed that we have 12 requests for hearing officer in the system. I haven't even had a chance to look yet to see exactly which properties that they're looking at. Errors aside, as I tell the meetings when we go, the clock's still ticking. Until you have a new assessment notice in your hand, state starting a new appeal period and giving you new 45 days, if you know you're going to appeal, go ahead and do it. Because there are cities, some of your neighbors, Johns Creek, Sandy Springs, Mountain Park, and then down Chattahoochee Hill Country that are not going to receive corrected notices. So if you own property in one of those jurisdictions, the deadline of June 21st still stands. I appreciated all the help that the AJC gave us and our free publicity about this, even though a lot of it was finger pointing and wagging at us. But I also criticized them a little bit about some of the mistakes that they make. They are right that the appeal date stands, and particularly at the time they did this, the decision had not been made to send out the corrected notices. But what's wrong is the next line. It says June 21 is deadline for residents to challenge the assessor's tax estimates. You can't appeal your tax estimate. It's just an estimate of tax. It's not anything. You can appeal a value. And so the headline makes everybody think you can appeal that tax estimate. When you read the rest of the article, they said it correct further down the article. And I've become quite good friends with Johnny Edwards and some of the people at the paper, some of the time. But we talked back and forth, and I did kind of criticize him with this one, told him he shouldn't have said that you could appeal estimates because we already have people trying to do that. The tax estimates may be good. The annual assessment notices that the law provides is a good thing, and as we get used to it and get it perfected, it will let property owners know what their property is worth. Again, Milton is one of the areas that will be getting corrected assessment notices. We believe they will all be mailed out this weekend with a June 11th beginning date, which, if my memory corrects right, that will put a July 26th as the last day to file an appeal. We will say it correctly on there. I'm certainly be glad to take any questions. My phone number is there, my email address, and I want to brag a little bit about our website. Obviously, any endeavor, including our website, can be improved, and we're constantly trying to do that. But we have a lot of data out there on the website, including the appeal forms. If you can pull up your own property, then go to advanced search. You'll pull up the sales that we used that came in 2010 that we used to help us get there to do it. Mr. Mayor and City Council, questions?
Anybody have any questions? I do want to, number one, again, thank you for coming tonight, but I also want to say how both through the city and also personal experiences, how responsive Mr. Manning's office has been. There's been several times that Mr. Manning and his staff have come just not only speak with us, but also know some homeowners and citizens had some concerns, and we contacted Mr. Manning, and he came up and visited with them and answered questions and all that. So I just have been very impressed with you and your office, and we appreciate you coming up here and speaking with us tonight.
Thank you, sir. Thank you very much. And if things go forward, if you need us back, don't forget to reach out to us.
I know sometimes you're the messenger and the bearer of bad news for some, but
Can be,
tough
particularly for cities and school boards in this downturn of the market. But we all know we can't help but read the news and see they're talking out there that some property values may be down to 1999, 2000 levels. Remember that real estate is valued one way, and we all learned it. For me, many, many years ago. It's based on one thing, and it's location. Location, location, location. We've all heard that. It's true in a down market just like it is in any other market. And there are plenty of signs of stabilization and maybe return to growth. Not yet. We're not seeing, we're seeing a little bit of new construction in spots and things around. You all are seeing a little bit. There are some signs. There was even an article in the AJC yesterday and today that had some little bits of growth information. Some of the worst zip codes, we don't value properties by zip codes, but they try to compare sale prices by zip codes. By their own analysis, some of the lowest priced zip codes, mostly in South Atlanta, down that way, were showing tiny signs of increase, maybe 4% over the prior year, one of them even 15% over the prior year. I do think, assuming I live long enough, we will see this turn around and stabilize. I don't know if we'll ever go back to what we saw in the early 2000s as growth in real estate values. Thank you again.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, will the city clerk please sound the next presentation?
Next presentation is presentation of Memorial Day Essay Contest winner and finalists. This is presented by Councilmember Bill Lusk.
Pardon me. This year we held our second Memorial Day essay contest, which was originally developed by Cindy Bonacci. And we received about 50 entries. All of them were from Hopewell Middle School. And it was up to about 6 of us to rate these entries and physically read each one of them. And I'll tell you what, if you don't think that patriotism is alive in the city of Milton, you need to come over and read all of these. And I think we probably should publish all 50 of them in the paper. Several of them really would make you choke up. But We've asked the finalists to come here tonight and be recognized. And as I call your name, if you would please stand up and be recognized. For honorable mention, we have Nicole Schuster. She's not here. She's from Miss Harris' 8th grade class, along with Parker Sylvester. He's not available tonight. It's from Mrs. Wording's 6th grade class, and you'll hear this teacher's name again. 3rd place was Julia Jack, a 6th grader from Miss Wording's class. Second place was Cynthia Meisinger, a 6th grader from Miss Wording's class. Here. And our winner was Madison Landis, a 6th grader, also from Miss Wording's class. And at this time, I'd like to have Nicole come up and read her entry.
Who would you like her to podium? Yeah.
Madison.
Remember to remember. The United States of America is often considered a great country. In social studies, children learn how the United States of America is a world power. We are rich and we are strong. But why are we so powerful? It's the people in this country that make us powerful. The scientists, the teachers, the artists, and the composers make the United States great. Most of all, though, the men and women who give most to our country, the members of the U.S. military, make the United States of America the great country that it is. Now, imagine you are a soldier battling for your life on a battlefield. Then a sharp pain grasps you. You fall to the ground where you close your eyes so you don't have to see the blood you know is pooling around you. The pain fades along with the light, and you have a moment of calm, a moment of peace. During that fleeting moment, you console yourself knowing that you have served your country and that you have helped give your children and your children's children a free life in the United States of America. This man and all the others that met the same end will be known during the months and maybe even a year or two after the war ends. But soon, as the marks of battle leave the land and the blood is washed from the field, the men will be forgotten. They will become numbers learned at school. Children will know that 1,200,000 men were killed in this war, or that almost 1 million men were killed in another war. However, only the families of those who were killed will really remember. Their families will never forget, but how about the rest of the country? Will the country remember a man, or will they remember a number? Even during the Civil War, people wondered the same thing. Women began decorating their sons' or husbands' grave before the end of the Civil War. Newspapers noticed and published many stories about the women. Soon, the government decided that one day a year should be set aside so that everyone could remember the people that were lost. New York was the first state to officially recognize the holiday as May 30th in 1873. All of the other northern states had followed suit by 1890. However, the South refused to accept the holiday. They chose their own days to remember those they had lost. The holiday had been created only for soldiers from the Civil War, and the southern states were still bitter and resentful of the North because the North had won the war. The South wouldn't even share a holiday with the other states. Later, after World War I, the holiday became a day to remember those who had died during any war, not just the Civil War. That was when the South finally agreed to the holiday. However, many of the southern states still have a separate day that they used to commemorate Confederate soldiers from the Civil War. When many people think of Memorial Day, they think of a day of barbecues or a day free from school. They don't remember why there's a holiday on that day, only that they have plenty of fun in store. These people have forgotten the true meaning of the holiday. There are now very few places that still have Memorial Day parades. Few graves are still decorated with flowers. Many people think that Congress contributed to this frame of thought when they said that Memorial Day should be a 3-day weekend. This allows children to think only that they're getting out of school. They have no thoughts to spare for soldiers. People have suggested that Congress change how they have set up the holiday, but nothing has changed yet. Memorial Day has evolved over the years, but it remains a day to remember all the American men and women that have been killed during wars. It is a day to think of those who have kept us free. It is a day to think of everything that our homeland has lost while becoming the country we are today. We have lost some of the bravest, most patriotic, most selfless men and women. These men and women have given us so much more than art, books, or music. They have given us freedom and a chance to choose our own lives. We know that they must be remembered. We must remember to remember.
At this time, I'd like to call Madison back up and Julia, along with the council. We have some certificates for you and some little gifts to take up.
It's kind of amazing that sometimes we, as adults, have to get reminded that our kids and our future leaders really did get it. So it's awesome that you guys got involved in both these essays. And what an honor for us to recognize you guys and have been part of our city. So thank Councilmember Bloss, too. Yeah. Go ahead, Bill.
And I'd be remiss if I didn't recognize Cindy Bonacci for starting that program last year and the work that she's put into helping develop the Memorial Day ceremony, along with Tom Gilliam, Sudie Gordon, Linda Matthews, and for sure our fire and police who participated this Memorial Day. It was a great service. Thank you all.
Thank you very much. All you guys have done a great job, so we appreciate it. Okay, we're out of our presentations. Will the city clerk please call the first presentations?
First item
Oh,
is
I'm
our...
sorry. You know what? I think we were going to do the...
That one is probably not going to make a whole lot of difference, but go ahead.
Yeah.
Do you want to do that?
Yeah, let's
Yeah,
go
I'd
ahead
like to
since
do
it was
that,
approved
so
during
that,
the
yeah.
immediate agenda. It's approval of the resolution amending Resolution 080103, a resolution appointing a member to the City of Milton Board of Zoning Appeals for District 6. It's item number 11119. Councilmember Tarr.
Yep.
Thank you, Mr. Loveland. First and foremost, I want to thank my appointee, John McCrae, of his service over the last 3.5 years. John is a special assistant to a general in the Army, and he has been relocated to the D.C. area. So his last meeting was this month. And I'm proud of his service. He did a great job. And I'm also proud to present my next appointee to the BZA, Mrs. Rita Young. You may know Ms. Young from her work on the strategic planning team for our City of Milton strategic planning team. And I've come to notice Ms. Young over the last few months. I remember her having a meeting with the mayor and Mr. Lagerblum, I believe it was, when we had a zoning action on Deerfield. And the mayor said, wow, there's this lady, and she's very sharp, and she's articulate, and she's intelligent, and she lives in your district, and she wants to be part of the future of the City of Milton, and I would like to appoint her to the Strategic Planning Committee. So I've watched her on that committee, and I'm so glad that I do have a position open so that you can carry that leadership forward. She is the Director of Public Policy and Education for All About Developmental Disabilities, AADD, in Atlanta. And she's been with them for quite a while, and she has done a lot of work to support and to build support, acceptance, and opportunity for both children, adults, and families living with developmental disabilities. And I look forward to her doing us all proud on the Board of Zoning Appeals. I did want to point out also that Rita's address is 13300-24 Morris Road in District 6.
Okay. At this point, I'll open up for a motion and a second to approve the Councilmember Tartt's appointment.
I make a motion for the approval of a resolution amending Resolution 080103, a resolution appointing a member to the City of Milton Board of Zoning Appeals for District 6, Mrs. Rita Young.
I'll second it.
Okay, I've got a motion by Councilmember Hewitt, second by Councilmember Thurman. And just before we vote, I do want to echo what Councilmember Tartt said. I occasionally have the pleasure of, in dealing with city issues and meeting with citizens and whatnot, to have people that you really feel like this person can make a difference and is really have a big benefit for the city. And Ms. Young was that type of person, and so I was pleased to be able to introduce her to Councilmember Tartt, and I'm glad she's getting involved. So, all in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? That's unanimous. So I think if Ms. Young would step up, we can go ahead and swear her in.
Just raise your right hand and repeat after me. I do solemnly swear and affirm
I do solemnly swear and affirm
that I will faithfully perform the duties of
that I will faithfully perform the duties of
the Board of Zoning Appeals Committee member
the Board of Zoning Appeals Committee member
of the city,
and
that I will support and defend the charter thereof,
that I will support and defend the charter thereof,
as well as the Constitution
as well as the Constitution
and laws of the state of Georgia
and laws of the state of Georgia
and of the United States of America.
and of the United States of America. Thank you so
Okay, City Clerk will please sound the next item.
Now we're going to go back to first presentation.
Oh,
Okay, we
I'm
don't want to
sorry.
do Mountain Coast
We
Spring?
didn't modify it for the agenda, so we can stay on track.
Okay.
It's only going to take 2 minutes.
Okay.
Okay, I'll read fast.
All right.
RZ 1113, BC 1102, 14355 Providence Road and Haystack Lane by Seegers and Snedow, LLC, to resign from C1 Community Business and AG1 Agricultural 201 Office Institutional and AG1 Agricultural to expand an existing building and 2 existing buildings for a total of 5,740 square feet with the following 4-part concurrent variance. First, Section 64-730, C1, to reduce the 40-foot side yard setback to 10 feet along the east property line. Second, Section 64-1433E, to allow off-street parking within the side corner yard along the east property line. Third, Section 64-11413A, to reduce the 50-foot buffer and 10-foot improvement setback along the west property line to 20 feet. And fourth, Section 64-11413A, to reduce the 50-foot buffer and 10-foot improvement setback along the north property line to 0 feet. Agenda item number 11116. Our second item is RZ 1106, text amendment to the zoning ordinance to create the Film and Movie Media Productions Administrative Permit. Section 64-1616. Agenda item number 11-091, deferred from May 2nd, regular council meeting. Next item is RZ 11-07, text amendment to the zoning ordinance to revise the use regulations for the C1 Community Business District, Section 64-775. Agenda item number 11-092, deferred from May 2nd, 2011, regular council meeting. Next item is RZ 11-08, text amendment to the zoning ordinance to revise the use regulations for the C2 Community Business District, Section 64-798, agenda item number 11-093, deferred from May 2nd, 2011, regular council meeting. Next item is RZ 11-09, text amendment to the zoning ordinance to create prohibited uses in all districts, Section 64-395, agenda item number 11-094, deferred from May 2nd, 2011, regular council meeting. RZ 1110, text amendment to the zoning ordinance to create separation standards for high traffic uses, Section 64-218, deferred from May 2nd, 2011, regular council meeting. Agenda item number 11095. Next item is RZ 1111, text amendment to the zoning ordinance to amend definitions in Section 64-1, agenda item number 11117. Our eighth and final item, RZ 11-12, text amendment to the zoning ordinance to amend roadside vending in Section 64-1607. Agenda item number 11-118.
Okay. Do I have a motion and a second for approval of these items?
Mayor, I move to approve the first presentation items.
Second.
A motion by Councilmember Tartt, second by Councilmember Longoria. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? That's unanimous. Okay, tonight we have no items under public hearing, zoning agenda, or unfinished business, so I'm going to move on to new business. Will the city clerk please sound the next item?
Next item is approval of a resolution amending resolution number 09-01-69, a resolution to create the Milton Groves Green Committee and its governing board, and for other designated purposes, and adding members to the Milton Groves Green Committee governing board. This is agenda item number 11-120. Ms. Cindy Eade.
Good evening. I just wanted to state briefly the purpose of Milton Groves Green. This is based on our resolution that was done back in 2008. The Milton Groves Green Committee has stated goals consistent with the mission and values of the City of Milton, including to preserve and enhance the City of Milton's rural character, consistent with its stated mission, encourage appropriate and sustainable growth for present and future generations, to identify standards and incentives for greener, more sustainable building practices, natural resources, develop a framework for evaluating and recommending and/or implementing appropriate initiatives, and to raise awareness and influence personal choices in ways that can promote the health and quality of life for the residents. And we have been meeting as a committee for the past 3 years. Some of the initiatives that Milton Groves Green has been responsible for has been the successful completion of 2 Earth Day festivals, helping to organize and promote the Bring One to the Chipper Christmas tree recycling at several locations throughout Milton now, assisting to organize and promote several bulky trash events, education at schools, which helps to meet the city's stormwater and solid waste goals, and last but not least, growing the Adopt a Road program to maintain clean and beautiful roads throughout Milton with our volunteer staff. And I'm here tonight to present Julie Pinkney. She has been a proud resident of Milton and the Alpharetta area for the past 11 years. She graduated from Hampton University with a finance degree and is currently working for Chartis Insurance within the Controllers Group as a senior collections representative. In addition to her career, she owns a mobile tutoring service specializing in math. She's the mother of 3 wonderful children, one of them being here tonight. Her youngest child attends Alpharetta High School and is a rising senior. Juanita's here with us tonight. Her son is in the Air Force, and her second daughter has graduated from UGA with a communications degree. To give you a little background, Julie was appointed to Milton's TERA and TSAC committees and is currently serving as Milton Grows Green Adopt a Road coordinator. In the last year since she's been the coordinator, she has grown the program, and we now have 28 roads adopted in Milton out of 42 potential roads to be developed. So she's done a great job in growing that program. She's active in her community, not only here in the city, but with Girl Scouts, the local school advisory council, school PTAs, and her church. We're happy that she offers her gifts and talents to make Milton a beautiful and safe community. So I'd like to present Julie. Her address is, she's recently moved, but still in Milton, 227 Edinburgh Court. That's Burgh Court in Milton. Julie's going to be taking Gina Schwindel's place. Gina had been on the committee for several years and has moved to California. And even though teleworking is very popular, that's a little too far to help us out much. So at this time, I'd like to present Julie Pinkney.
Okay, and I'd like to ask for a motion and second on that.
Mayor, if I may, it would be a privilege to put forward a motion to approve and put forward the resolution number 090169, a resolution to create a Milton Grows Green Committee and its governing board and for other designated purposes, and adding members to the MGG Committee governing board. I'd like to put that forward for approval. Julie Pinkney particularly.
Yeah. Okay.
Second motion.
All right, I have a motion by Councilmember Bailey, second by Councilmember Tarr. All in favor, please say aye. Aye. Any opposed? That's unanimous. So if Julie wants to step forward, and I will give her her oath.
And Mayor, as you step down, I'd like to just say that Julie has been involved and engaged, not just for this last year as an Adopt a Roads coordinator, but she's been engaged for the last several years and has done an outstanding job, and it's a real privilege to have her involvement.
And I do want to apologize, Cindy and Julie, that kind of missed when we moved the other nomination up on the agenda. We didn't hear it, but we did. That was not on purpose. So you'll raise your right hand and speak or repeat after me. I do solemnly swear and affirm that I will faithfully perform the duties of a Milton Grows Green Committee member of the city, and that I will support and defend the charter thereof, as well as the Constitution and the laws of the state of Georgia and of the United States of America. Thank you, sir.
Thank you so much.
Juanita, thank you for being here.
I think she got some good pictures.
And also, if the city staff could please put Julie and Rita's numbers on the website, so if any citizens have any problems or whatever, they can call them at home. I'm kidding.
You didn't know you were signing up for that, did you?
Julie would probably take the call and direct them in the right way, and she'd do it all with a lot of grace and professionalism. So.
Sounds good.
Will city clerk please stay on the next item?
The next item is approval of a resolution to authorize the mayor and city council to approve the submission of a revised transportation enhancement application to Georgia Department of Transportation. Agenda item number 11-121. Mr. Carter Lucas.
Thank you. Good evening, Mayor and Council. Several months ago, we had a discussion about T grant that was awarded to Fulton County and subsequently to City of Milton after we incorporated. This T grant involved transportation improvements, pedestrian improvements in the Crabapple area, and we had a discussion about whether or not that those funds should remain in the Crabapple area or the potential to moving them to other areas in the community. And at your direction, we were asked to look at the Crabapple area and see if there was an opportunity to keep those funds in that particular area. Looking at the projects, both our transportation projects that are being proposed in that area and the land plan performed by Lou Oliver, we think that we've identified projects within the Crabapple area that would utilize the entire T grant in that particular, in the Crabapple area. Some of the projects that we're looking at for this particular grant would be the addition of pedestrian lighting along the corridors of Mayfield and Broadwell and up to School Drive along 372, as well as some sidewalk connectivity identified in Lou Oliver's study that would bring sidewalk from the Alpharetta city limits up mid-Broadwell, as well as sidewalk connections along Mayfield from Charlotte over to the intersection at 372, Mayfield and mid-Broadwell. And with that, we have prepared a resolution to forward to GDOT to formally transfer the funds from Fulton County over to the City of Milton and allow us to proceed with the development of this project in the Crabapple area. And this resolution accomplishes that transfer. If you have any questions, I'd be glad to answer them.
Any questions for Mr. Lucas?
I appreciate you doing that.
One, just thank you. I would echo the thank you of Councilmember Thurman. The others, just, and I know back when we talked about this, in particular when it relates to the lights, because some of the lighting that's in the Crabapple area is in Alpharetta, and obviously some of it's going to be in Milton. Just as this proceeds, I'm assuming that there will be more details that will be flushed out of this in terms of the type of lights, the spacing. I know there's been some that have said that Alpharetta maybe was a little bit overzealous when they put in some of the lighting, so at night it is a bit bright. And so I just wanted to make sure that as this proceeds, that as you guys look at placement, while of course we want to be complementary with Alpharetta, that we would take kind of a holistic view and just make sure that we're making some good decisions from this point forward in terms of where those lights should be, what's the appropriate amount of foot candle based on the number of actual poles, just those sorts of details. And didn't know if the design review board would be engaged in that. I'm assuming that they would be, maybe in addition to Lou. But if you could just maybe comment on that briefly.
Well, all of the lighting so far that we've done in our preliminary estimates would match the lighting that we currently have in the City of Milton, not necessarily Alpharetta's piece. Further design would certainly be warranted. We've just done some preliminary estimates with Georgia Power, looking at the lights that are currently there in relationship to what we would be installing. So there'd be a final design that comes through with all of these. DRB, anybody who would like to review the plans, we'd be more than happy to go through that. But
again, I think it'll be a wonderful enhancement collectively. It's just making sure that we're looking at the whole, which in this case does happen to abut Alpharetta. So I think we just need to make sure that we're looking at what that would do in its entirety. And then in terms of the sidewalks, I'm assuming also, and maybe just for the record to state, that these locations were chosen because they will not be negatively impacted by some of the roadway discussions, so that when we're putting in a sidewalk, as an example, it will go in and have some permanence, as opposed to going in and then having to be trimmed back up.
that's right. We looked at that as well as the plan that Lou Oliver put together to try and come up with our best approximation of where we could put these improvements without significantly impacting them in the future.
Thank you very much.
You're welcome.
Okay, Bill?
I read in your discussion here that it's going to be approximately 2 years before these projects go out to bid.
We have 2 years to put them out to bid.
Okay.
We will still have to follow the federal guidelines as far as right-of-way acquisition, environmental review. There's still a number of steps, and 2 years may not be an unreasonable estimate to complete a project like this. But our agreement would basically say that we would put them out to bid within 2 years.
So there's still plenty of time to coordinate all of this with our crabapple master plan.
Yes, sir, absolutely.
Thank you.
Okay. All right, do I have a motion? There's no more questions?
I'd like to make a motion for the approval of agenda item 11-121.
I'll second the motion.
Okay, I have a motion by Councilmember Hewitt and a second by Councilmember Lust. Do we have any more discussion? Hearing none, all in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? That's unanimous. Thank you, Carter. Will the city clerk please call the next item?
Next item is approval of a resolution to adopt the City of Milton's 2030 Comprehensive Plan, the Community Agenda. Agenda item number 11-122. Ms. Lynn Tully.
Good evening, council members. This is the final step in approval for our comprehensive plan. This is the third prong of a very lengthy process. The first two portions of the plan, the community assessment and the community participation plan, were approved in 2008. And since that time, we have been working on the comprehensive plan's community agenda portion, which is the portion that sets policy. It's the portion that identifies future land use potential, and it sets forward a short-term work program and a long-term work program for accomplishing the plan. So it's pretty in-depth, and I will say that CPAC has worked very diligently on this. It went to DCA after you all's transmittal in December, and we received very few comments, none of which were, life-altering in any way. And we did get an approval from DCA on February the 22nd. So we've addressed those comments with CPAC. We did that at a meeting in April 20th. And they have recommended this plan to you all to hear tonight. So what I'd like to do is point out that the plan in your packet is a little different from the plan of the future land use map that you had received before. It was missing 3 small areas. For whatever reason, when we upgraded our GIS server the last time, my best description, non-technical description, is at 8, the last set of maps. And so what we did was go back and recreate that, again with those 3 small changes, one of which is a community facilities property that's located at the corner of Cox Road and Etris, which is a church. The other is a parcel of about 6 acres that's surrounded by waterside development out on Crabapple Road, which was future land use planned for high-density residential to match waterside. And the other is the addition of the John Whelan property into the mixed-use area, which it already obviously is based on its current zoning. So those 3 things have been taken care of in that new map, and that is the map that's included in the comprehensive plan. Let me just go ahead and start by taking some questions from council. And I would say that if we have any questions for CPAC, Mr. Moore is available as well, who's a CPAC member, and he's in the audience.
Okay, let's start out with questions. Do I have some? Alan?
I just have one question. Thank you, Mayor. Is there a way for us, since we are now approving this after a zoning action, is there a way for us to change the land use map to accommodate the fact that we approved that residential up on Highway 9 that was meant to be office?
Yes, sir. Now is the time to do that. Again, small changes. That, to me, going from the office to a residential use is not a major change, so I think that we're okay. If we're looking at changing a whole corridor, then we would probably need to send it back to DCA, but that small change is probably ripe for this moment.
Do you see any value in doing that?
That would be my question. Yeah, typically, is that something we would need to do or not, or what's your?
It does allow it to be consistent. I don't expect that it would come back in for any additional zonings, though. You know, when it would come up again would be if something around it was going to be rezoned as well. For instance, there is a parcel adjoining that specific parcel that is currently zoned TR that is not developed. They may want to come in and develop as O&I. I would say that TR is probably a good buffer use or transitional use to an O&I zoning. So I don't think it's going to hurt to stay, I guess is what I'm saying. I don't think it's going to hurt for you to change it and make it consistent either.
Is there any legal justification for changing it now to make it consistent?
There's not, and there's no legal ramifications of that. I mean, I think that, this really isn't a zoning as-built map, though. I mean, that's the one thing. That's not really what it is. It's a planning guide tool. So I would mitigate against changing it, because I think you still want the guide to be the guide, and by possibly plugging that one in, it may kind of show up as an anomaly in what otherwise is a consistent whole. Does that make sense?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
That'd be my recommendation too.
Okay.
But does it look bad to have our guide, for us to have already gone against our
Start
guide?
off to be
Since day one.
Yeah, I mean, before day one to be already against the guide, I mean, it just,
Well, it proves that it can be,
Yeah.
you know,
Yeah,
there can be exceptions.
it's a guide. It's a future guide. It's not exact.
I mean, everybody's point's well taken, and Councilman Thurman, I get it. I just think if you weigh all of that in the balance, I tend to think the tip is just leave it be. Would be my thought. But I'll defer, of course, to Lynn.
I mean, is it something, I know that every zoning action is separate and distinct, but is it something that someone can use in a future zoning action if we were to say, look, you know, we're going to deny or approve this because it's consistent with our...
They'll use it on either way. They'll use it if you change it to show that the entirety of the area is going a different way than the guide suggests. If you don't change it, then the second they come up and they say it's not consistent with the map, they'll say, yeah, but you've already deviated from the map, because they'll know. It won't be on the map, but they'll know practically. So it really doesn't matter, but again, I think you have a little more horsepower if you're able to say, well, that was an anomaly, our guide is this, and this is what we're going to defer to.
Okay. Just kind of go down, Joe. You have any questions?
Good.
Okay. Bill?
Could you kind of outline the comments that DCA did have?
Sure. One of the comments was regarding a statement to simply say that we would not be in conflict with our neighboring jurisdictions in regards to their comp plans. We added that statement on page 13, page 67, and page 78. Just as a practical matter, to let you all know, we have been working with Alpharetta, who's currently in the midst of their comp planning process. Roswell, who is, I believe, has just begun their comp planning process a few months ago. Cherokee County, who has completed theirs and they're not looking at an update until next year. We've also been working with Forsyth County on theirs as well, where it adjoins us, and they are about 2/3 of the way through. And, you know, we're getting varied response. Everyone wants to try to work with us as best they can, but of course they are also subject to their own citizens planning committees and their own councils and commissions. So we don't always get exactly what we ask for, but we're doing pretty well to work with our neighboring jurisdictions. One of the other comments, and they had about 3 items, one of which we specifically did include, dealt with potential interjurisdictional and regional solutions. It asked that the city continue to work with MARTA and Greta to improve transit access to and from within the city, which we addressed on page 65. It noted that we did not specifically mention the North Fulton Comprehensive Transportation Plan that was developed, and we did include that in our supplemental plans section. and again on pages 13 and pages 15. And then it also asked us to include potential work with organizations such as PEDS, PEDS, to coordinate safe routes to school programs, and PATH, PATH, for bike and pedestrian connections. And those references were also made. It also included internal consistency of our planning elements, which they felt were consistent, as well as consistency with the regional development plan. And other comments included the potential for the city to consider a 3-acre lot zoning district, which we did discuss, a very lengthy discussion with CPAC late in the process and also early in the process, and they felt like that was probably something that we didn't want to tackle at this time because of the potential for takings, because there are current rights to 1-acre lot zones currently in our ordinance. So that was specifically discussed. One of the things I would point out is we don't have to take all of the comments of ARC, but we do have to take them under advisement, and they did so. The other thing is transfer of development rights, and including several other references to that, which we did actually reference in many places, but they asked for some more, so we put those in, pages 9, 14, 57, 63, and 64. That the city address the need for increased density in targeted redevelopment areas, which we did discuss again at very lengthy, and believe that we have accomplished that within what was current, so we didn't make any changes to address that. New development proposed within the city should be required to connect to one another or existing developments through the use of development codes or zoning regulations. And actually, that is something that we already have addressed within our development regulations and in our overlay districts. They were not aware of that, but that's already in there, so we didn't include any additional reference to that.
Excuse me.
Yes, sir?
Does that relate to commercial properties as well as residential properties, or just commercial properties?
Well, I think it relates to both, but particularly in our case, we apply it to commercial properties. So, it did recommend access management studies be conducted for major corridors within the city, especially those mentioned as development areas or master planning areas, which we addressed on page 63. The plan does address congestion, multimodal, and walkability. There is little mention of safety as part of the transportation strategies, and this could be integrated within what has already been written. So we did include safety, and we are assuming that's pedestrian safety as well as automobile safety. We addressed those on pages 77 and 78. And it did also mention the designation of the Crabapple area as the city's town center, which actually we did not include in the plan. We didn't designate a location in the plan, but we did discuss the creation of a town center as part of our comprehensive plan. We felt like it was the council's place to actually designate that particular area.
So they recommended it. Is that what I'm hearing?
They said, and I'll quote, "The plan makes mention of designating the Crabapple area as the city's town center." And that's really, as I said before, that's really not the case in the comprehensive plan. We didn't specifically say, in fact, we specifically avoided saying, a particular area for the town center because we felt like council's job was to designate that area, but that we would work with whatever area in our comprehensive plan. We did give priority to those areas that were, of course, master planned. So that would leave it in several areas of the city, but those areas that were master planned.
Is there a way we can get a copy? I mean, it seems like it was a good many things, and some of which were changed and some were not changed. I think.
Yes, ma'am.
Can we get a copy of that letter?
I'll be happy to provide it. This is what I have here is simply the comments that they provided, and then the pages where we address those. But I'll be happy to provide that as well. Yes, ma'am.
I think that would be important for us to know what was addressed and also what was not addressed.
Okay, Karen, I'm all
Again,
set.
the majority of it really, it didn't change the plan. It simply added an additional statement here or there. But it was, again, there are those things that they asked us to discuss, and we did discuss them, so. But I can finish going through the list, or I can provide a copy. How would you like to proceed?
Wouldn't be bad if you could provide a copy, and then, yeah, we'll move on. And since Karen already, you've got another question for Lynn, and then I'll let Julie.
Is Julie going to go next? I thought we were,
Well,
are we
you
going
kind of
down the?
stepped in, so I'll just go ahead and finish if you've got some more.
Well, I had a bunch of things, but do you want me to go ahead and go now, or you want?
Depends on what they are, yeah, if you think it's, I mean, if you think they're relative now, or we'll continue on with.
Did you want to go?
I think Joe said for you to go
Okay.
ahead and
Yeah,
continue.
go ahead. Well,
I had a couple questions. On page 9, under issues, the last thing, it says new development threatens to encroach upon areas that are not suited for development. And to me, that sentence really needs to be reworded, because it should say areas that may not be suited for development rather than are not, because if the development threatens to encroach in them, then it just is not worded properly. I don't know how we can really say that we're in this, that an area is not suited for development without expanding on it. On page 39, we're talking about Bethany. It says development is only encouraged in this area after the master plan has been adopted. I wasn't sure exactly what that meant, because, I mean, it looks like it was going to be a little while before a master plan for that particular area was. Does that mean that we're just not going to promote development in that area? Or, because we can't really restrict it if it's on if there's areas that are already zoned for it.
Right, and I think that it's simply saying that we are not going to proactively encourage development in that area. Not, again, we can't restrict it, but we wouldn't necessarily proactively encourage it until we get a master plan. And that's something that was very, very hotly debated in the CPAC committee. They felt like, we've got to continue to grow even without a master plan, but we've got to allow the opportunity to grow. But we just want to be sure that that growth is not going to be inconsistent with what we may have in a master plan. We're lucky, particularly in this area, in that we did receive an LCI grant that we'll open the bids on tomorrow, so that we can start creating that master plan. It'll be very quickly done, hopefully. But it is something that, again, like I said, was very hotly debated because of exactly that reason. But they felt like that wording was appropriate.
Speaking of LCI grant, I know looking under like the short-term work program and all, it talks about applying for other LCI grants this year, and is that something we can do? I thought you could not apply for any more. I thought you had to wait a period of time before applying for another one. Because I just want to make sure we got a short-term work program. I don't want us to be going against it immediately.
Right. We can't apply for the same one. So assuming that we can get a town center area designated, then we will apply for a town center.
Because I think we have for Arnold Mill and Master Plan and Crabapple.
Yeah, we have capital funds set aside for Arnold Mills Master Plan and Crabapples. So.
Okay, good. On page 61, it says the strategy is to adopt an impact fee ordinance. I feel strongly that we should not say that we want to adopt an impact fee ordinance, but we ought to consider adopting it, because an impact fee ordinance could be very detrimental to the city if we are wanting to not have much growth or have minimize growth for at least until we can get these master plans. So I don't want us to say that we should adopt an impact fee ordinance. I think impact fee ordinances are for areas where you have significant growth, and they work wonderfully in those areas. But in an area that you do not have significant growth, they can come back to really be very detrimental to the city and end up costing you a significant amount of money without really getting as much rewards for. So I feel like we need to say, both on page 61 and then also on page 76, instead of establishing an impact fee ordinance, just to say consider for both of those.
Do you, to Councilmember Thurman's point, do you have any comments on that, either from the legal side or Lynn, your opinion on that?
As far as whether or not we consider it?
Yeah, some wording change that if it would be appropriate.
Well, I think just to boot to belt and suspenders, if you just want to put consider adoption of, I mean, that's perfectly fine. I think it's, quite frankly, I don't think this is binding. This would require you to adopt one anyway, even if you adopted it like that. But if you want to truly carve out the fact that this is simply something on the table, just put consider adoption of an impact fee program.
Yeah, I think that's fine, because I think it is something we should consider, but I don't think it's something we should say we're definitely going to adopt.
Does anybody else have any comments on that, or is that?
That's fine.
Does that kind of leave it?
I'd go along with that, too. I know one of the members of BZA worked in the city of Roswell for years. Talked with him extensively about impact fees and the pros and cons of it in an area that, like we have up here, I think you can get more benefit out of negotiating with developers than you can by just strictly imposing impact fee ordinance out there. Your comment on that?
Well, I've seen it work both ways. I've seen them actually be very successful, and I've seen them scare away some development. I think it does allow for a more level playing field for developers in that, instead of the negotiations, they know what they're getting into from the time they walk in the door. They know what this fee is going to be and what that fee is going to be, and then it will actually go towards the system that they work within. It will go towards the improvements there within their own traffic system, but it wouldn't be necessarily a project improvement. They would still have to do their own project improvements. Sure. So I've seen it work very well. I mean, I've seen it pay for several fire trucks, fire stations, land, jails, but I've also seen it scare some things away. Particularly, and Carter's going to hate this, but particularly when you include roadway costs in there, it does get very expensive. Those impact fees are a lot higher when you include road costs because roads are expensive. Those things that create more traffic, fast food, restaurants, banks, things that, again, like I say, create more trip generation will have a higher fee, and you'll scare some of those folks away.
Maybe case in point, there's quite a bit of discussion in the press a few years ago about impact fees in Buckhead and how that process was abused. City was collecting impact fees down there and using them elsewhere outside of the district. So I think it has a capability of being abused like that. Not saying that we're going to do it, but that's some of my experience firsthand with impact fees has been in the city of Atlanta.
Yeah, you do have to be very, very careful in how those monies are spent. But if you define your service area correctly, then you shouldn't have those kind of abusive problems.
Well, my concern my concern is not the abuse. My concern is the fact that you've got to say what improvements are going to be made, and if you don't have any development and don't collect on those fees, you got to make those improvements anyway. So that's my concern, is the fact that you have to, we may have to make improvements that we may not necessarily have the impact fees to cover.
Yeah. And I would just want to make sure, I mean, there's nothing in this document when I read it that takes away our ability to debate any one of these issues. It's not stating in any way that we have to do something or we can't do something else. I mean, all of this is basically a guideline that sets up, what our thoughts are. And it's the result of quite a bit of debate and work. And so, I mean, I appreciate the comments that everybody's making, but we don't have to get into these issues in this detail because we're not getting tied to having to make a decision at this point. This is just opening up or laying the groundwork for a debate that's going to happen at some point in time in the future. So Again, I mean, we can keep going through it, but I was real comfortable with this document when I read it because I knew it wasn't tying our hands in any way.
I agree.
Well, and again, I see everybody's point, but I think to Councilmember Thurman's point, and it sounds like the council's pretty agreeable if we want to change, that we have the ability, not that we shall, so to speak. I think. Yeah, Julie.
Just on impact fees, I'm assuming that it's in here because our staff believes it is worthy of evaluation, and our CPAC committee believes it's worthy of consideration. And I think in particular, as we look at transportation improvements that are needed, obviously as in our recent master planning meetings in Crabapple and eventually on 140, is I think that one of the things we've got to figure out are what are some of the ways to share in those costs. And so I just think that to not consider that would be inconsistent with what we've said in other meetings. So again, I think to Councilmember Longoria's point, this is not where that decision gets made or doesn't get made, but obviously our professional staff and CPAC believe that it was worthy of consideration.
And this certainly allows us moving forward to consider, whether to add impact fees or not. So,
Which I think is how we worded it for
Yeah.
like the conservation some of the conservation subdivision. It's, some of the other things say consider, but here it basically said that's what we were going to do. And that bothered me a little because it didn't look like it really gave us, it basically said the decision has been made that we're going to do it. And I want us to consider making that decision, not that it's been made.
And just for consistency, I would ask on that same page of 76 that we insert the same language that Councilmember Thurman just mentioned in front of the conservation subdivision ordinance, and rather than to say create, that we then, for consistency, say consider creating a conservation subdivision ordinance. So for consistency, we need to add it there as well.
Where do you see that, Julie?
Right
So,
the next
76 on the middle of the page. You got that? Okay. Okay. Line. We'll continue and we'll.
And the only other thing I had was on the short-term work program under the NRC 1, create a historic zoning code. It's not shown up until 2013. And I didn't know if that was something we were currently working on trying to do. Or
You guys want to address that?
I'll address that. Yeah, actually, right now, we're very caught in, well, we've got a couple of different projects going on. The first really kind of work project that they have is they're working on the historic survey. So they're trying to get that all entered and into a database format where, they're pretty sure that those items that were listed in that old 96 survey are still there and are still considered, valid historic sites and historic resources. So that's kind of a work project that they have going on. The other is the situation we have with the state where they've not been real supportive of the ordinance that we've adopted. And so we're going to have to come back to you all with their recommendations for approval, and that will probably take some time. I don't anticipate that will be completed before the end of the year, but we hope to get it started probably in the fall based on their recommendations to us.
so it may take until 2013 to get that historic zoning done.
Yes,
Be
ma'am.
accurate.
Okay.
If we get a historic zone,
Oh, okay.
take it out is what we've been told.
Go ahead, Bill, on that point.
We don't need to get too deep in that weed, in
Yeah.
those weeds tonight.
Just briefly clarify that, we did get the report back from the state on the historic preservation ordinance.
Yes, sir.
Yeah.
And
Did they or did they not approve it?
They did not.
No, they didn't.
They did not approve it. In particular, they take issue with the creation of a historic zone. So, we're going to have to go back and rethink how we do this again. So,
And again, I think this is, like Chris said, this is an issue that we need to devote time to address it, but we're not going to cure it.
What are the implications of that denial then, as far as the Historic Preservation Commission?
Receipt of any grants from the state for those properties that would be within a historic district for any sort of renovation, tax credits, things of that nature.
Is that the only part of the ordinance
That's the one
that
that,
we couldn't act on? Can we act on the rest of the ordinance? I guess my
Yeah.
question is, does this put the commission on hold?
I don't think it puts it on hold, but it does put certain sections on hold. That's one of them. They also have concern about just designating a historic site, which is one of the big things that we've been working on. In fact, we've had, I think you've even nominated 4 sites on your own. So, as a historic place, without calling it without having an actual historic overlay district. So, we're going to have to go back and do some major rewrites with Ms. Burns from the state and the Historic Preservation Committee. So it's going to take a little time. Bear with us.
This is a bummer. This has gone on
It is.
for almost 4
It is.
years.
It was quite disappointing.
Almost 5 years.
Karen?
I think some of the other things I have are just really kind of minor things. So if this is strictly just a guide, then we'll be okay. It says page 60 says one of the strategies is to work with Fulton County to provide community parks and regional parks. And Fulton County is not in the parks business at all for anyone that's located, anyone that is in a city. So that's not really something that's. But it's not an action item, so we can dream.
And it may be that one of those, because we still have Providence Park that has
Yeah.
not been released, I think that probably references the 45 rough acres that we do need to continue to work with Fulton County, I think. And then I know that with the fire station that's adjacent to the Birmingham Park, there's still some discussion about how we're going to transfer certain things. So my guess is that that's probably what that references.
Right.
I believe so.
And then Julie, if you've got some questions or comments, and then I also want to recognize that George Ragsdale's here, and earlier on we had if there's any questions for CPAC, certainly be glad to, or if you have any comments after Julie's questions, be glad to have you come up.
I would just say first and foremost, thank you for CPAC, who's not entirely here this evening, but for those representing CPAC and all of those that have been working very diligently for a very long time, thank you. My question really, I just want to go back to your first statement, Lynn, about the 3 parcels. I want to make sure I understand those that were being added, since tonight's the first night that we were made aware of that. First, you mentioned Cox and Eastris Road, and if my memory serves me back, when we were still unincorporated Fulton, there was a rezoning for a church at Eastris and Cox on that corner. What I'm not certain of is whether or not that church ultimately was constructed.
No, I think this is a church that's been there for 300 and 400 years.
That's the one that we had the zoning case a couple of weeks ago.
No, it's not. That's Ebenezer.
No.
So can you clarify which church this is?
It is an existing church, as I understand it, and that was pointed out to us from one of the public meetings.
So it's an existing church?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. And what that change then on this map is simply to identify it, is it identified as a special use permit? Because that wouldn't be here.
No, and again, this is not a zoning map, so.
Right, I'm just trying to make sure I
But it
understand.
does identify it as a community facility, so.
Okay. But primarily that's for an existing zoning that's already been in place, the church is there.
It just makes that consistent, yes, ma'am.
And then I'll jump to the John Wheeland next, which was the C item, John Wheeland. And again, that was inclusive of only the acres that had been previously zoned. Is that
That's correct.
So it was not that it was anything new, it was just that it needed to be correctly reflected.
That's correct, yes, ma'am.
And you can see on this map it's shown as low-density residential for the office buildings. Right. So that was just corrected.
Just to correct that. And then on the acreage in between Waterside, when you said high density, can we be more specific? And then I'd also like to clarify what it's zoned currently versus how that also compares and contrasts with some of the zoning, or not zoning, but some of the sewer maps that we had adjusted, just to make sure that we're clear on which 6 acres that is and if that's consistent with those earlier votes.
Yes, ma'am. High-density residential is characterized as 3 to 5 single-family homes per acre. So that's what they're considering high-density residential for the purposes of the future land use map.
Okay. And that sits between those two.
Between the
phases, if
two
you will.
entrances to Waterside.
Waterside. And is that consistent with the change in the map that was made for that? I know we had some discussion about that particular parcel. It's currently a farm, so it's currently AG1. Did CPAC specifically, I don't know if Mr. Ragsdale, if you could speak to that, did CPAC address this map and any of these changes? I just want to make sure this is
Yes,
consistent.
that one specifically was identified.
Okay, so that is consistent with CPAC's decisions as well as other maps?
Yes, ma'am. And it had been reflected on prior maps.
Thank you, I appreciate that. And again, just for clarity, if ever there was an error, let's say a citizen identified something or somebody else, it could then be modified in the future because, again, it's a guideline. So if there was an error that nobody has caught, we would still have that opportunity to reflect a change. Thank you.
Like the parcel we bought just right north of here, I think it's still reflecting as being mixed use, not community facility. Is that correct?
Behind the high school?
No, the one we bought right at
For
the
the
corner.
parkland,
Yeah.
Yes, ma'am. In fact, that parcel is shown as retail and service.
So we can show that as a green part.
And
So we can
the
change
property
that.
we bought on Highway 9, is that shown correctly? Is that that one little blue area?
I think that we did include that one, yes, ma'am. We missed the one at Webb and Deerfield Parkway.
And so things such as that, as time passes, then we can just
No.
always come back and modify that.
Is it not?
Still recommended with play. That's where we bought that.
Oh, there it is. Yes, I see.
Just about it.
Mm-hmm. I've got it.
Still mixed use.
We can show that as community facility as well.
Should we-
Okay. We'll have those changed.
Bill, you had
Just one specific question. Chadwick's landfill.
Yes, sir.
is designated as Parks, Recreation, and Conservation. Which are the three categories does that fall?
And again, this is our 2030 future land use map, so we hope that someday when that is closed, it would be parks, if nothing else, passive parkland,
Isn't it,
you know.
doesn't EPA post a 50-year ban on turning that into a park?
I think you could use it as passive only for a long time, again, as long as you don't break the seal. But there'll be a long time before you could ever, for instance, make it a golf course.
Regardless, it can't be used for anything
Anything
else.
like that.
our mountain.
You could smell the water.
Mount Trash.
No trash.
Could be a green thinker.
George, do you have anything you want to, comments you want to make, or you guys are good? Okay.
Joe, real quick, Ken, if we go in and change some of the language, instead of saying we will, to we should, in terms of some of these strategies that we
Does that
mentioned.
therefore make the rest of it more
Yeah.
mandatory than otherwise? No. I mean,
Okay.
I'm not-
All right. Good. Then I won't
This
worry about it.
document is what it is.
Okay.
And it's codified in law, that's what it is.
I just didn't want to run into
Sure,
trouble
yeah.
later.
Open one can of worms. And Chris, you've got captured what,
I've captured the comments
from council on it. Okay.
Between Lynn and I, we've got it.
Yes.
Lynn, you have anything?
Yes, sir. No, I
Just
think
we'll go back and watch it again,
Okay, all right.
but I think I've got it.
Does anybody else have anything they?
So
I do want to add, as other council members have said, thank our CPAC committee, and we certainly need to recognize them at some point soon for everything they've done.
I think the best way we can thank them is passing the next item.
I think they're here, I think they're here to make sure we pass the next one, so.
On to that, I'd like to make a motion for the approval of a resolution to adopt the City of Milton's 2030 Comprehensive Plan, the community agenda, item number 11122.
I'll second the motion.
And
Sorry.
with a few minor changes that Chris has captured
On the record.
on the
And I will
record.
second that motion.
All right, I have a motion by Councilmember Hewitt, second by Councilmember Bailey. Any discussion? All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? That's unanimous. Now the one, you guys have been waiting. Okay. City clerk, sound the next item.
Thank you, CPAC.
Approval of a resolution to dissolve the Comprehensive Plan Advisory Committee and to recognize the work of its members. Agenda item number 11, 1, 2, 3. Mr. Ken Gerard.
Mr. Mayor, members of the council, this next item is exactly what it sounds like, and it's simply the fact that we assembled CPAC for the purpose of putting together what we just discussed. They have fulfilled their duties, and this resolution would simply put the belt and suspenders in the fact that we have accepted what they have provided, it is done, and that their function is thereby terminated. Lynn and I went back and forth with respect to whether we even needed this or not. We just felt prudence dictated that we did want to do this, just to make sure that everyone understood that we, first of all, greatly, greatly appreciated all the time and effort that they have put into this endeavor, and secondly, to say that they have been let free.
Free at last, free at last.
Do they not want to speak in favor of this agenda item?
I think we should defer it for 6 months.
Do I have a motion?
So moved.
Second.
I have a motion, Councilman Hewitt, second by Councilmember Longoria. Any discussion? I just, again, want to thank you guys. This is a huge undertaking, and I know you've spent a lot of time and effort and poured a lot into it, so thank you very much. Julie?
Just knowing that the short-term work program and some of those other initiatives, as those proceed, with this resolution dissolving the committee per se, how does staff anticipate in some of these cases, some of these items, I guess will go to Planning Commission, but will there be opportunity at some point if you need the input? Would it be that you would just
The Planning Commission.
go back to the Planning Commission, in particular on the work items?
Yes, particularly on the work program items. Now, when we get ready to do another update to our comprehensive plan, you don't want to let it sit idle for too long, so probably in about 5 years, we'll start looking at it again, depending on our growth rate and what changes we see. So they will be set free, but not forgotten.
They'll be on a longer leash.
So I believe we'll probably end up calling back another committee when we do another update, which would be, again, like I said, it's about 5 years when you want to start looking at putting together another
And then in
committee
the
to do
interim,
the
it's really
updates.
staff and the Planning Commission and others that then bring some of these individual items back to us.
Yes, ma'am. The individual items you'll see as work items, either from the Planning Commission or from staff.
Terrific, thank you.
Okay. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? That's unanimous.
Thank you, guys. Lots and lots of work.
Right, and we'll move now on to reports. I'd like to just thank the staff members that were involved. Jason's here, and Sudi, and Cindy was here, and the rest of our staff involved, and certainly Councilmember Lust for all his hard work on our Memorial Day ceremony. So I was not able to be there, but just want to thank you, and heard great things about it. I think it's a great tradition that the city has, and evident by some of our residents with the students that all participated.
Outstanding.
It was a tremendous event,
Yeah.
so very moving.
So, is anything council would like to report on?
I just want to let the council know I'm going to be on vacation next Monday. I'll be thinking about y'all.
Well, you can always watch this on Granicus if you're bored.
Trust me, I'm not even going to check my BlackBerry. If you have an emergency, I'll send you my daughter's email address or something. Much needed.
Okay.
Next Monday?
Bill and Alan.
Anybody else? It's a long work session. You're missing out on the great nights. But
See, I saw that.
Now, you
sad.
know,
I almost changed my flight to accommodate this
No, you
once I saw it tonight, and I said no.
That's what you call good planning.
But I will be gone in July for the first 2 meetings. So hopefully nobody else will be gone then.
That time of year.
It is.
Yeah.
I just see my baby.
May I just a quick question?
Sure.
And I don't know if it's appropriate for me to ask it here, or maybe just after the meeting. I know Lynn and I had talked, a couple of in particular, one of the work session items next week having to do about zonings and where certain things and definitions are appropriate. I just wanted to be forthcoming and let you guys know that I would be interested in some of those areas in particular and seeing what we might need to do with regards to pawn shops and some of the gold buying entities. As a city, we really haven't addressed that, and I do believe that the work session is an appropriate place to address it. It's an area that I have become, unfortunately, much more familiar with as of late, and I believe that legally we need to do some things to protect our citizens and to protect North Fulton, and I think that we've not done that, and I think we have an opportunity to set Milton apart and make sure that we don't promote crime through some of these entities. And I think that some of the things that are coming back to us in a few weeks would be an appropriate time, either as we proceed with some of this, to go ahead and proceed knowing that we're also going to look at some ordinances, and there are some good model ordinances out there. But I think that we, as a citizen group representing citizens, i.e. council, we have an opportunity to help protect our citizens in a better way. And so I would just like to encourage us to consider that, and with staff's help and with Chris's help, I think we can.
Are you talking about as far as length of time before these pawn shops are
Number
allowed
of things,
to?
length of time, but
Okay,
also
yeah.
not looking just at pawn shops, but also looking at what I'll call the new fencing areas, that there's some places that historically may not fall under the definition of pawn shop that are effectively helping to promote crime in North Fulton, and I think we need to address it proactively and would encourage us to do so. And I think that because of some of what's coming forward in the next few weeks, we have an opportunity to at least start the dialogue as a city. So I just wanted to let you guys know that I've reached out to staff, and really just in preparation for the next week's work session, I think it's at least a beginning opportunity for us to have some dialogue.
Sure.
So just thank you in advance for that.
All right. Anybody else have anything? Okay, staff?
Yeah, just a couple of things, but the bulk of it tonight in the executive session. You all tonight by email should receive or have received a copy of the current document that exists with the strategic plan. Please take note of that. That's on your work session next Monday, so don't let it get to be Sunday night and you haven't looked at it yet. So it's in your inbox. Just take a look at it so that we can have a good, productive discussion next Monday night. Second thing, a reminder of a ribbon cutting tomorrow morning at 11 o'clock at the Bethel Community Center. You're all welcome. I hope many of you can attend. It'll be hot out there, so dress appropriately. And the last thing I just want to bring to your attention tonight, we don't have to have a lot of fanfare with it tonight, but at some point we're going to have to discuss Sunday sales of alcohol. At some point I'm going to be looking for your direction as to whether, basically what you're choosing at this point is whether or not the voters should get the opportunity to choose.
And I'd go ahead and say my opinion would be that we need to at least allow our voters to choose that. So I don't know if, the rest of the council.
I mean, this is sufficient. If at least 4 of y'all say that's the route we want to go, then there's a whole series of events we have to make happen for that to occur. So we will start those series of events.
Put it on the ballot.
And we have to advertise 4 weeks in a row, and I mean, there's a whole series of
but I think
stuff.
you get the direction from the council here.
I think it ought to be a citywide decision, not
Along those lines,
separate.
I think it's on our agenda on down the line a little bit, but the brown bagging ordinance, like Alpharetta just asked.
Yes, that'll come forward. It's going to be a first presentation at the next meeting. So it'll be ready for y'all to see in 2 weeks from tonight. It is prepared. The police department has agreed to it, as well as Ken's office, and we think we like what we've got.
Sure, good. All right, anything else?
You can. Yeah, you're still here. Yeah. How about that?
I was just back there
A little
reading.
quicker than we thought.
I was just back there reading the Daniel Pink book.
That's a good book.
Yeah, like a good employee. So it's that time of year again for the advertisement for the Milton football program. We need to have it done before July 10th, and I know with everybody going on vacation and stuff, I just need to know when would be a good time. It sounds like maybe late June would be an okay time. Basically, we just need to go to Milton High School one afternoon. I'll borrow you for about an hour, and we'll take some photos. So I guess I'll just email you guys and
Yeah,
try
maybe
and
you could email.
try and
then
coordinate everybody's
kind of
schedule.
see if there's one gravitates towards one particular time slot.
Just hearing everybody's different schedules. Is everybody in town this week?
I'm leaving tomorrow morning.
Okay.
And how about next week?
I am here till July 1st.
And I will, I won't be here end of June. I'm back before every meeting, but
Just sharpen your Photoshop skills. You just make a picture.
Well, before the meet, no, Bill, you said you're going on the 20th, right? No, the mayor's gone on the 20th.
We had a really good picture last year.
Yeah, just make us all look a little younger, and then just save it.
Thank you, not old.
I just, I mean, if you guys are okay with the same photo, we could certainly use it, but I mean,
Just flip it over
We
so
get
it
up
makes it
against
look
our-
like you're on the other side of the stadium.
I mean, we
You wanna
did
do
take
it
two
at
shots last year that were different.
Yeah, and I wouldn't have a problem with that. If
That's
the
fine with me.
council was okay with it. You look younger at least.
Jason, I would never want to discount your services and the effort that you put into those kind of things, but if you wanted to reuse one of those pictures from last year, I'd be.
I'd be okay with it. It's a little
Okay,
bit different.
I'll just work up the ad with the second photo that we didn't use. We used it for the newsletter, but we didn't use it.
Maybe
for
you
the
could
ad.
send that out, and then everybody can respond if they're okay with it.
I mean, so at least it's a worst case if you can't get us all together.
Absolutely.
And if we can't get together.
I know I've been in Photoshop in some pictures, and you can't hardly tell.
And you didn't even know, right?
And I'm like, yeah, I was there, but I don't remember being there. All right. Do I have a motion to adjourn into an executive session to discuss potential land acquisition and
Possible litigation.
litigation?
And personnel.
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 So moved.
Yeah.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? That's unanimous. Stephen?